The Nashville Predators have won 4 in a row. Will this weekend's back-to-back be the crash down to earth, or is it just possible the team can get 2 wins and we can start to think about a roster turning the page on a disastrous season? We're going to talk about that and preview the matchups. We also are going to share some Big Friday feelings on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this, oh my gosh, I can't believe it, but we made it to Friday episode, shouting out our Locked On Predators insiders and our everydayers who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. You all make the hockey season and the week so much better. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio, and my friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingen, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
All right, Emma, I know I'm just throwing this out here and we're going to debate it, but is it possible that the Nashville Predators can keep a win streak going? Ooh, we are going to talk about the keys to this Predators team staying hot and what it would take for us to actually believe that there is sustainable progress with this roster. Of course, there are weekend back-to-back games. We're going to preview those. And friends, it is Friday. And this week, that means that Emma and I are going to talk about a big Friday feeling in a hockey season of big every day of the week feelings. But we're going to focus on one today. Before we dive into all of that, do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Emma, I didn't know if we would ever see this again, but the Nashville Predators have won 4 games in a row. 84 years ago, they won 5 games in a row. Just throwing it out there, the team that snapped that, the Anaheim Ducks, going to be playing them tonight. What could possibly go wrong? We're going to dive into that in the second segment. But it's been a while since we've seen anything that looks like consistency from the Nashville Predators. They have looked pretty good in these 4 wins. When you look at the wins, what stands out to you, and where do you think this team can dig into being consistent?
Well, I think, looking at the wins, for the most part, not all wins are created equal. We know that. But I think that looking at the wins over, so maybe not so much the last 2, but if you're looking at the wins over, Boston, Seattle, those 2 especially, Nashville was the better team, and they were playing like the better team in that game for 60 minutes. We saw full 60-minute efforts, which we have not seen from this team all year. Chicago got a little dicey, obviously. It was, they took them to overtime, did end up winning, but then San Jose, we talked about this after that win. Nashville was not the better team. The better team did not win that game. And I think that, just they couldn't really withstand all the pressure that San Jose was putting on them in the defensive zone. They struggled to get out of the defensive zone and actually, put shots on net. Of course, they did end up coming away with the win. But again, that was more of a lucky kind of, hey, this one went our way. But you know what? They've had enough things that haven't gone their way this year. So we'll just take it.
We'll receive that.
Yeah. And, when I look ahead to Anaheim, they are a similar team to San Jose in that they are young and they're fast. And that seemed to be what was giving Nashville fits, against the Sharks, is that they just couldn't keep up. So I liked the consistency we saw from them in the first 2 games. The second 2, especially San Jose. That one was a little bit of like, are we coming back down to earth a little
Yeah.
bit?
I think if the season had gone differently, I could feel differently and live with the San Jose game, because in an 82 game season, you are going to play games where on paper you're the better team. You don't perform like the better team, but you find a way. But with the season that Nashville has had, we still are not at a place in March of the regular season where we can say, you know what, this was just one of those games where Nashville was the better team. They didn't play like it, but they got it, because we just still are trying to figure out who this team is. I mean, the question we are asking ourselves on the podcast today on March 14th is, who is this Nashville Predators team? Like, can we believe what we are seeing? It's March. Y'all, it's March. So these games, you almost have to analyze them completely differently than you would analyze a game like this in a typical March, because you would know what this Predators team is. I agree with you. The Boston win felt real good. The Seattle win, that one felt real good too. These last two, you could say, oh, it's trending away from being what we want it to be. And is this weekend going to be the weekend where they can't turn it around? It's so hard to know what to say.
Well, it's tough because these last two games happen to be against the two teams in the league that have a worse record than Nashville does. And it's like, you chalk it up to like they're playing down to their opponent, but like, yeah, they were. And that's problematic when your opponent is, the worst and second worst team in the league. So I think that, it's, you kind of see this, and I was talking about this with someone recently about like the Boston Bruins and how they have kind of, it's crazy. They traded Brad Marchand, Charlie Coyle, and Brandon Carlo, and then they started winning all these games. And it's like, wow, it's crazy. They're doing better without him. And it's the same thing we talk about like with Roman Yossi being out or whatever. After, like, sort of in the immediate term after a departure of some sort, whether it's an injury, a trade, or whatever, you do tend to see this. It's a league-wide phenomenon. You tend to see kind of a surge, like, not because like, oh, thank God we got rid of Gus Nyquist and Tommy Novak, now we can really play hockey. It's more just like kind of a rallying around, like picking up the slack for the pieces that are no longer there kind of thing. And a lot of times it might just not even be, it might be subconscious. But I think that regardless of the reason, you do tend to see that around the league. Team loses a key piece or a couple key pieces, they surge, but then they come back to equilibrium. They come kind of, they will eventually, the pendulum will swing the other way. And so I think that, I don't know if that's what this is with Nashville. Obviously, the trade deadline, they lost Nyquist, Jankowski, Novak, and Shen. Again, I don't know if that's what this is, but like you were saying, the last two, you could see like, oh, we're trending back to where we were before.
So. Yes. And it's hard to know what to believe. You look at these two games this weekend, Anaheim and again, the LA Kings are the two back-to-back games the Preds have. And it's hard to know what to think if Nashville wins these two games. I think it's pretty easy to know what to think if they lose these two games. You think, yep, still can't figure this team out. I mean, we've been thinking that this whole season. But if they win these two games, what does that mean? At what point do you start weighing wins with this Predators team and saying there is something to carry over? There is progress. There is a lesson learned that's not going to be forgotten. I don't know if it's these two games this weekend. If they win them, I don't know if I'm going to be there. I don't know. Will we get to a point? Like, do you think there will be a point before the end of the season, Emma, where we will say if they tend to win more than they lose, if they play more consistently than they have, do you think there is going to be a point where we're going to look at this Predators team and say, okay, they have learned a lesson this season and they're better positioned for next season? Are we guaranteed that?
At this point, I don't know because it's only like 20 something less than that games
Yeah.
left in the year. So it's like, even if, like, honestly, they could win out, they could go
Oh, Lord.
19-0 for the rest of the year, and I still would be just as confused at the end of the season about, like, okay,
Mhm.
which team is this? Is it the team that just won out, or is it the team that looked like dog crap earlier in the year? Like, again, the fact that it's taken this long, if it were to take this long to start winning and not even just getting the wins, but actually playing with consistency, it's like that is concerning to me.
Yeah. That brings me to a question looking back on last season. I'm going to hang on to that, but I want to follow that up. Like, what are we going to learn at this point in the season and answer that question by looking back? We're going to do that. We're also going to preview these games against Anaheim and against the LA Kings, tell you where we think Nashville could take advantage. Friends, if you are struggling through this West Coast game week, you are not alone. You may be somebody who wants to start your day with a good cup of coffee to get going after game day. But if you are tired of settling for the same grocery store brands that just aren't cutting it, you need to turn to Trade. This coffee, it's next level. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the United States, bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of this country's top roasters. Their experts have taste tested thousands of coffees, curating over 450 amazing roasts. Whether you are new to coffee or know exactly what you like, they can help handpick the perfect match for you. So, how do I know they're going to find you your right coffee? It's easy. They have this great quiz on their website, and in under a minute, they're going to match you with a roast that is perfect based on the roast and taste that you prefer and how you like to drink your coffee. And friends, if you don't like that first bag, there's no worries. Trade will replace it for free until they get it just right. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 40% off your first order at drinktrade.com/LockedOnNHL. That's drinktrade.com/LockedOnNHL for 40% off your first order. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who is going to cut down the nets. With tournament games kicking off almost every day, there is always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple and it's easy to use. And when you win, you're going to get paid instantly. There's no waiting around. So visit fanduel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. So, Emma, I'm just thinking about this, and this just is kind of unscripted off the top of my head. But, we looked back at last season, and the Predators struggle, 18-game point streak, make it into the postseason. And what we took away from that was, it just took them that long to figure out the system. And then we come into this season, and there were, yes, major pieces had to learn the system. You had Brady Shea, top 6 or top 4 defensemen. You've got Stamkos, you've got Marchessault having to learn this system. But nobody has played well consistently this whole season. So now I look back and I'm like, did we read last season wrong? Did we think, okay, you know what? They just needed more time to get the system. Now, where we're at in March of this year, it's like I just don't think that cuts it anymore. So why, like, I don't know what to take away from either of these two seasons from where we sit right now.
Well, that's exactly it. I think that's kind of why I landed on, now weeks ago that Andrew Brunette is not the right coach for this group because again, the fact that you've now seen 2 seasons or almost 2 seasons under this coach and you still don't know who this team is, that is what is concerning to me. And I think because we 2 vastly different seasons. One, they completely outperformed expectations, and one, they didn't even sniff the expectations that were set for them.
Oh.
So that's concerning. I think also, like you said, it would have been different because we were thinking, okay, yes, this is it. It just took them time to get the system, but once they got the system, we're golden. And so that that line of thinking, I think, would have held up had they, done better this year, or maybe even if they had, because we predicted there would be, a
We did.
little bit of a learning curve at the beginning. Like I don't, we kind of expected that, but this whole learning curve has lasted 84 years now, and we're like, okay, I think
Yes.
it's just, it's hard to say, okay, that's what this was. Like it's not just that they needed more time because this
Yeah.
team has now had more time and they have more talent on their
Mhm.
roster
Yeah.
and
We just don't have it.
nothing to show for it.
March 14th, people, it's March 14th. We got nothing. And what's so interesting is I feel like we can describe in words what we're supposed to be seeing, but we can't put our eyes on the ice and say, yes, we're consistently seeing that. Like I know what on paper the identity is supposed to be, but I can't watch a game, or I haven't been able to watch a game and go, yes, now I see the identity. These last 4 wins is the closest I've been to saying, I could tell you what they want out of this team. I can tell you what this team is about by watching a game. This is the closest we've been to that. Did I mention it's March 14th? So like, will 2 more wins this weekend make me think, okay, something is clicking? I don't know. Like, I don't know when we will be able to believe anything specific about this team. And I'm getting to a point where I'm like, I don't know if we're going to be able to nail down everything that has gone wrong with this team. And just as somebody whose job it is to talk about those things, I'm feeling a little frustrated this Friday about that. A
Yeah.
little frustrated. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a rough
So
year.
it's been a year. It's been a year, y'all. The 2 games this weekend, it would be so fascinating to me if Nashville won both of those. Anaheim is up tonight, and friends, it's a 9 p.m. puck drop. So get your trade coffee. Now, hopefully you can sleep in on Saturday, but it's one of them nights again, 9 p.m. puck drop against Anaheim. You mentioned this earlier. Anaheim and San Jose remind me very much of each other in the sense that they have a kryptonite that can get Nashville, and that is their speed. This is a kryptonite. And what I find interesting and horrifying is that the Anaheim Ducks are the team that snapped, like we said, that previous 5-game win streak. But how they did it, I hope that we don't see them lose this way, because it was a tie game until Anaheim scored 3 goals in about 3 minutes. Boom, boom, boom at the end of the game. That if we see something like that, I know we are still at square one.
Well, I mean, like you said, 3 goals, 3 minutes. What happened against San Jose? They were up 2-0 just 2 days ago, 3 days ago.
Yeah.
They were up.
Yeah.
Nashville was up 2-0, and then San Jose scored 2 goals 14 seconds apart in the 3rd period. Boom. We're back to square one. Yes, Kiefer Bellows managed to score 1 and they came away with the win, but it's the same thing. It's like you're not out of the woods until you're out of the woods. And if San Jose can do that, Anaheim can do that, anyone can do that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, you're scaring me, but you are absolutely 100% right. No, you are absolutely right. I'm like, is there a chance that I could come out of this weekend with hope? I think the answer we're leaning to is don't bother,
Yeah.
even if they get 2 wins. Now, Anaheim, Anaheim is such an interesting team because you look at their roster and you're like, okay, you've got some veteran presence that's really good. You've got some spunky young guys. You and I have talked, we've talked in the offseason about Trevor Zegras because of course it's like, hey, is this the guy Nashville's been missing? I don't know that he is. But they have some pieces that make them a team where you think, okay, this could be a team that puts it together, but they don't quite get it together. And they have games where they score a lot and you're like, here it is. And then they have games where they give up a lot and you're like, there it goes. It's hard to nail this Anaheim team down, but it's got to feel better because at least they didn't come in with like contender expectations. That's kind of sounds nice after what we've been through. They do not have a very good power play. They're 31st in the league. So I think Nashville could take advantage on special teams. Here's the other thing, though. I don't care if the team you're playing is 31st on the power play. Nashville needs to practice not committing penalties. Just practice not doing it. Just don't do it. And we talked about this too with San Jose. San Jose dominated Nashville at 5-on-5. Dominated them. Nashville has to win this game at 5-on-5 for me. And I will feel good. Anaheim always seems to be a team that kind of gets like, I think Winnipeg might feel this way about Nashville. Like, okay, you shouldn't be the team that gets us, but Anaheim feels like the team that gets Nashville, like not in the good way, like gets them.
Yeah. Even when Nashville was good 84 years ago, it's still, that was.
It was Anaheim.
Yeah. Anaheim. Yeah.
So crazy. Now, that game is Friday. Saturday, much more palatable puck drop, friends. It's against the LA Kings, and that puck drop is at a decent, honorable, respectable 7 p.m. Central Time. Emma, when you look at the game against the LA Kings, what jumps out to you? What does Nashville need to do? Where is the soft spot in the Kings' armor?
Well, looking at the Kings, they were a team, they're in third place in the Pacific, like pretty, stably there in third place. And, they're a playoff team, but they're interesting because if you think about it, like, okay, that's a playoff team. They should be buyers at the trade deadline. What did they need the most? Well, they needed scoring. And it's the same thing that they needed last offseason. And what did they do? They went out and got Warren Fogle and Tanner Jeannot. And no disrespect, but I like those
noted
are not
goal
guys,
scorers.
Noted goal scorer. I'm like, those are not the guys that I would go if I'm like my team needs more scoring. I'm gonna go get those guys. Like, no. But then, then they've done okay. And it's like, all right, cool. I mean, in a quite frankly, pretty weak Pacific Division. Like other than Vegas, like Edmonton is not as good as they were, this year. So like it's really just kind of Vegas and everyone else, it feels like. So I just, Calgary's been good in spurts, but I just think that if you look at LA, like they were in a position at the trade deadline where they could have added some scoring and that would have given them a very good advantage, over because they're probably going to face Edmonton in the first round. Edmonton has scorers. That's one thing they do have. They've got Draisaitl and McDavid, but if you're knowing at this point, yeah, that's probably who we're going to match up against and we need scoring. Maybe we do something about that at the trade deadline. So what did they do? They go out and get Andrei Kuzmenko. Again, no disrespect.
Goal scorer.
No, again, I'm like, what are we doing? It would be, I mean, it's kind of like, it would be like if they got like a Mark Jankowski, which is like, really, this is going to fix your lack of scoring problem? Like,
yeah.
And so that's my long-winded way of saying that I think that they don't have like a ton of big offensive weapons. LA is kind of a top heavy team when it comes to scoring. They don't have a lot of depth. And so I think that is something that the Predators could, use to their advantage if they're able to, like we said, in those games against Boston and Seattle, they had all four lines going. Nashville did. If they can do that again, I think you can get to a team like LA because they don't have that depth.
Yeah. I would love to see Nashville get back to that Boston, Seattle look again. And like we said, though, the trajectory has been trending downward. Can they turn that around this weekend against these two teams? I think it would be very interesting. It will be very interesting to come back Monday if they get 2 wins. It's going to be very interesting and a very typical Monday if they come back and they have lost them both, y'all. It just nothing would surprise Emma and I at this point. Like,
Sure.
we're afraid of nothing at this point. Nothing. We do, however, have feelings about things. This is, like we said earlier, a season of big feels. But coming up, I'm going to just step into one of the bigger feelings that I have going on right now in the conversation surrounding these Nashville Predators. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, wait a minute, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's really easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever with Monarch Money. You can track shared and personal accounts. You can set goals together and stay on the same page without all the extra stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. You can use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Emma, we have gotten through the season. I don't know if we've mentioned it before, but it's March 14th. And this has been a season where there have been drunk games against the San Jose Sharks, and Steven Stamkos has had a record-setting point drought, and Philip Forsberg didn't score for 8 light years, and then it's been so up and down. But we just passed the trade deadline, and we've worked through our disappointment. And I just wanted to bring to the forefront one very specific feeling that I'm going through right now for our Big Friday feeling segment, if that's all right with you. And then you can tell me, and that feeling is like a fart, or you can commiserate.
Please have the floor.
So let me preface everything by saying we know, Emma and I know, this season, woof. This has been a season of high expectations, low return. Been very disappointing. The minute you think maybe it's turned around, oh, wait, no, it's not. But right now, there is a growing sentiment, and I understand the logistics of it, about Barry Trotz is not the right general manager. You need to chop the head off at the top. Barry Trotz, he needs to go. And so I just want to press into that right now, because this is how I feel about that. General managing is a difficult job. You have to do 2 things very, very well. They are opposite things, and you have to be able to do them excellently in different situations, and you can't read it wrong. You have to have the most ridiculous amount of patience while you also have the fastest trigger finger. And when Barry Trotz signed Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault and Brady Shea, we were all like, woo, fast trigger finger. Love that. When Barry Trotz didn't make a lot of the moves that cleaned out this locker room at the deadline, people were like, he's too patient. And here's what I will say. You all might be right. You might be right. But grading a general manager a season and 3/4 into their tenure and saying he is not good at this is a little bit tricky. And I feel like we're jumping the gun. And I get nothing out of defending Barry Trotz. I get nothing out of it. But I think general managing is judged very differently. You judge a player game by game. You judge a coach by a season. You judge a general manager over a 3, 4, 5 years. Do I think Nashville has to suffer through 5 years to find out Barry Trotz is a bad GM? You know what? You might, because that's how long it might take to figure out if he is a good general manager. Do I think it's tricky for a coach to become a general manager? I do. Those are two very different skill sets, but he has a lot of insight. That may cloud his judgment, that may benefit his judgment, but we don't know. So when it comes to how I'm feeling this Friday, it is this. I understand the level of frustration is high, as it should be, but I'm not sure that you have to scrap and burn down the roster. I'm not sure you have to scrap and burn down the entire coaching staff, but I'd look there. I don't think that you have to say after a season and 3 quarters, Barry Trotz sucks as a general manager. I just you can, and you might be right, but I am telling you right now, 2 seasons from now, you have just as much a chance to be wrong. And it's okay to not know something. It's okay to not know something, you all. It's really okay not to know something or to learn something that you didn't know before and change how you view it. There's just a lot of general manager poopery going on, and it's understandable. But I just want to say, you might want to slow your roll. You might want to slow your roll. I'm as diplomatic as I can be, Emma.
I think that was very well said. I tend to agree with you. I am not here, and you're not either, saying everyone calm down. Barry Trotz is a great general manager.
No.
We're saying we don't know. He might be terrible,
Mm-hmm.
but he also might be amazing. And it's just simply too early to know which of the two it is. If you're judging him based on individual decisions he's made as GM, he has made some really good decisions. He has also made some really questionable at the time decisions. Again, like in the immediate term, they don't look good. And I understand that the optics are bad of a lot of things, like trading Alex Carrier, the whole thing with Yaroslav Askarov, but then, he goes and he signs Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, Brady Shea. Like, those were moves that people liked, and understandably. So it's like he's done a lot of good. He's done a lot of, don't know about that, Barry.
Don't know about that one. Mm-hmm.
But that's just being a general manager. Like, it's just going to happen. It's just like a player is going to go through slumps and, not perform up to their ability. It's just different. But I think that I totally agree with you. I think, we're not sitting here defending him and saying he's doing a great job. You guys are wrong. No, we're saying we see you, we hear you, and we are looking and analyzing the same moves as everyone else. Some of them look like slam dunks. Some of them look like, oh God, Barry, what are you doing? So we get it, but it just simply, again, I know we keep saying 84 years. It's only been a year and 3 quarters. So
Right.
It's really not been that long. So before we start making these sweeping statements about, Barry Trotz's future, again, he may turn out to be terrible, and we can have this conversation again in about 3 years if you really want to. We can, if things are still this bad in 3 years and there is no clear direction or whatever it is, then we can have that conversation about fire the GM. But right now it's like, oh my gosh, the Predators added Steven Stamkos and they lost their first 5 games. Now we got to trade him. It's like, no,
that's not how this works.
It's not how it works.
Yeah. And being a general manager, I think the other thing that you have to appreciate about the role, and I'm not saying you have to appreciate this specifically about Barry Trotz. You don't have to feel any way about Barry Trotz, but it is so fluid based on things like injuries, based on things like the trade market, based on things like the free agents available, based on things like cap space. It's a very fluid situation. And so you can say, I'm going to set this course and this is what's going to happen. Well, that That's not how it works in the role of general manager. I also think when you have a general manager who has been here a year and 3/4, who has had only one head coach under him and a big roster transition, it might be too soon to evaluate. And again, not saying 3 years from now we're going to be like, best damn thing that ever happened was Barry Trotz, but we don't know. We don't know. Watch it. Make note. Ask questions. Look at long-term projections for players in, players out. Watch the cap space. All of this. But we don't know yet. Like, we just don't know yet. And more power to you if you want to stand there and say that you do, but you don't.
And not only watch it, but keep an open mind too, because if you've already decided a year and a half in, oh, Barry needs to go, then every decision, every move that he makes, you're going to twist in to fit that narrative. Like if you've already decided he needs to lose his job, Barry Trotz could go cure cancer and you would find something wrong with it and be like, well, that's why he needs to be fired. Like,
Yeah.
Just try to be as objective. I know it's hard. We're journalists. We do this for a living. Fans are not, that's not in the fans'
You don't
MO
have
to be objective. You don't have to.
Yeah.
But again, when it comes to things like this, and we're not saying don't feel your feelings. Like we have feelings. This has
we
been
feel them, you all.
This has been extraordinarily unpleasant to cover this team this season. So we get it. It's not that we're not feeling it. And we're not saying, guys, it's not that bad. Calm down. But we are saying, like, it feels worse when you're in the thick of it. Like we are in the thick of this right now, but I think that you have to, like, do exactly what we're talking about. What a general manager has to do is take a step back, look at, the sort of the big picture, see, is it really this bad or does it just feel really bad right now? Because those are two different things. It can feel bad right now, and it does, but that doesn't mean that, we're doomed forever.
Yeah. A lot can change in an off season. We learned that last off season. I suspect we're going to learn some more about that life lesson in this off season, whatever that may look like. But I'm just saying, when it comes to this specific role, and this is his first time as a general manager, we don't know. And it's okay. It's so okay to question what he's doing, but we don't know yet. That's all I'm saying. What we do know is the Nashville Predators are playing a back-to-back starting tonight at 9, heaven help us, o'clock p.m. puck drop Central Time. Tomorrow, again, more palatable, 7 p.m. Central Time. Of course, what that means is that Emma and I will be back Monday morning. We're going to recap these two games. We're going to tell you, are we an ounce closer to believing, or are we like, nope, we are back on the hamster wheel? I don't know what to expect, but whatever it is, we'll break it down for you on Monday's show. Before we log off for the weekend, Emma, will you let everyone know where they can find you and where they can find your work?
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingen, and you can find my work and all my game coverage at the Hockey News.
You can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio as well. Friends, that is going to do it for this week's editions of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in with us Monday through Friday as we cover this wild and crazy Nashville Predators team and season. Like I said, we will be back Monday. We're going to recap these weekend games. Hope you all have a great weekend. We'll see you then.